ただいまより天道流なぎなた術による古武道セミナーを行います。
We will now begin the Kobudo seminar introducing Tendo Ryu Naginata Jutsu.
講話は木村康子天道流なぎなた術第17代宗家が行います。
The lecturer will be Yasuko Kimura, who is the 17th Soke, that's headmaster of the Tendo Ryu Naginata Jutsu tradition.
演舞者は木村宗家のほか、小野由紀子様、木村ゆり様、木村充様以上の4名にお願いいたします。
And the demonstrators will be Kimura Soke, also accompanied by Yukiko Ono, Yuri Kimura, and Mitsuru Kimura.
流派の紹介及び本日の講話の概要につきましては、プログラムに掲載しておりますので、合わせてご覧ください。
We'll ask you to please refer to the program for an introduction of the school and an outline of today's lecture and demonstration.
それでは木村先生、よろしくお願いいたしま
So
す。
please welcome Kimura Sensei.
茨城県に生まれた斎藤半眼伝希坊は塚原牧伝の門に入り闘争の術を学んでいましたが、技の真髄を一途に求め鎌倉八幡宮に100日の参籠の行を行い、天正9年1581年11月21日に満願の夜、夢の中、探し求めていた剣の妙義を記された一筋の巻物を天から授かり、誠の道にかなう妙義を得て一流を起こしたと伝えられています。これを天流と称し、後に天道流と改められました。
So we're going to start by giving a brief outline of the history of Tendo Ryu. It was started by a warrior by the name of Saito Hankan Denkibo, who was born in what is now known as Ibaraki Prefecture. And he studied techniques of the sword and the spear under a great master and continued to follow his dream of reaching the highest secrets of the martial arts. And in order to do this, he locked himself away in the precincts of the Kamakura Tsurugaoka Hachiman shrine for 100 days, in which he conducted very serious, rigorous self-training. And on the 21st of the 11th month in the year 1581, it is said that he was visited in a dream by a deity of that shrine, and the secrets of swordsmanship and combat were passed on to him in that dream. And it's because of this heavenly divine wisdom that he named the school that he created thereafter the Tenryu, or the heavenly school. And it was later changed to Tendoryu, which means the heavenly way school.
天道流は450年の歴史を誇り、数々の武器を使って編み出された武術ですが、昭和初期に女子への学校なぎなたに採用され、以降なぎなた術が有名です。
So within the Tendo Ryu, which has a history of over 450 years, we do not only use the naginata, we use various weapons, which we're going to show to you very shortly. In modern times in Japan, where martial arts were introduced into the school system as a form of physical education, girls in Japanese schools were taught the art of the naginata. And it's from this time in particular that Tendo Ryu became fairly well known throughout the country.
武器としてのなぎなたは、初めは長い刀という意味でしたが、人馬をなぎ払う武器の意味で、なぐ刀からなぎなたと呼ばれるようになりました。
Okay, so the naginata, which is the main weapon of the Tendo Ryu itself, originally was named naginata using the kanji, which means long sword. But the kanji that's used to write naginata changed later on, or you can get both versions actually, to mean mowing sword, named after the action which is used by the wielder of the naginata to cut at people, the enemy, of course, and also the horses that they're riding on from a safe distance.
なぎなたは遠間からなぎ、突き入ることをできる有利な武器として、武士や造兵のみならず、僧侶や女性にも広く用いられました。
So the naginata as a weapon, given its length being longer than a normal sword, is very useful for thrusting at opponents or cutting at them from a distance, which is why it was used not only by samurai but also by warrior monks and later on, in particular, by women.
数ある技の中でも始祖斎藤判官伝喜坊が編み出した天道流の神髄である一文字の乱れは絶えることなく今も最初に習う基礎でありながら後世の人間がなかなか到達できない深達な内容を表しています。
Okay, so the founder of the school, Saito Denkibo, created a technique or a kata, if you like, which is known as ichimonji no midare, and we're going to demonstrate that for you very shortly. But this very first technique, ichimonji no midare, is said to contain the very essence of the teachings of Tendo Ryu, and students of the school always start by learning this very first kata, ichimonji no midare, and in fact they spend their entire lives trying to perfect it, because once you learn ichimonji no midare, it continues on to all the various other techniques as well.
天道流にはなぎなた術、剣術、二刀、定術、鎖鎌術、小太刀、短刀術、回剣の技が伝承されています。現在はその中でも特になぎなた術が広く普及しています。
So in Tendo Ryu, as I mentioned before, we don't only have naginata techniques, we also have techniques of kenjutsu, which is swordsmanship, nito, which is using two swords at the same time, jojutsu, which is the techniques of the staff, kusarigama jutsu, which is the sickle and chain, kodachi, which is the short sword, and tanto and kaiken, these are daggers. So we use various different weapons in the kata that we practice, but the main weapon is for the techniques of the naginata.
今お見せするのが真剣のなぎなたで、なぎなたには長いなぎなたや短いのもありますが、これはつばがついている真剣のなぎなたです。
Okay, so we are showing you at the moment a real naginata. Okay, so this is a real naginata. You can see that it's a very long shaft with a blade, a single-edged blade, like a mini katana on the top, and there are various different styles of naginata depending on the era or the time in question. So there are longer ones and there are shorter ones. There are many shapes and sizes.
重さは3キロから5キロあります。でも天道流では真剣のなぎなたは使って、お稽古はいたしません。
So a real naginata like this, the weight varies also, usually about 3 kilograms to 5 kilograms. Of course, it's very dangerous to use a real naginata in practice. So in Tendo Ryu, when we do keiko, when we do our training, we do not use a real naginata, we use one of these.
このなぎなたは槍と違って反りがありますので、この反りでえぐりづくという技を多く使います。
So one of the important characteristics of the naginata is you can see that there is curvature on the blade. This is called sori, and a Japanese spear or yari is a straight weapon, whereas the naginata has this curvature, and we use this curvature to great effect when we do thrusting techniques or thrusting over the top of the opponent's weapon in order to gain the advantage. So this curvature is a very important part of the technical characteristics of the waza that we perform in naginata.
天道流は各武器に対して太刀で受けます。受け太刀と言います。それに対して技をかける方をし 下地と呼びます。すべての技は下地が勝ちます。天道流の技の特徴は肩試合です。防具はつけていませんが、受け師が技を掛け合います。
So when we practice Tendo Ryu, usually one side uses the naginata and the other side uses a sword. And we'll show you that very shortly. And typically in the techniques that we perform, it is the naginata that is victorious in each one of the forms or the kata that we do. We like to call our practice methodology in Tendo Ryu kata shiai. Kata means forms and shiai means match. So even though we're practicing predetermined forms, there is also a little bit of ambiguity included as well. So with that, we add a little bit of realism to the interaction that we engage in.
最初になぎなたの技をご紹介します。なぎなたは真っ向、面から水月、みぞおちまでを切り下ろす。それから、石突きでつく。そういう、鎧で守られていない脇や股を狙っていくというのが、大きな、動きの特徴です。
So we're just going to show you, to give you an idea of what we do so that you can appreciate the demonstration a little bit later on. How do we use the naginata? Where are we aiming for? What are we trying to do? So typically the naginata, when we use it, we cut down from above the head down through into the solar plexus area. So we're really cutting through as much as we can and then over the top so that we can thrust into the opponent's body. We also use the opposite end of the blade, and pretty much all of the naginata is utilized in some way to execute the techniques.
一番最初、一文字の乱れ。
So let's look at Ichimonji no Midare, the technique I explained before, the very first one in Tendo Ryu.
次は鎧で守られていない脇を攻める生死脇止め。
So the next technique we show you, another typical aspect of the fighting techniques that we use in Tendo Ryu is we aim for areas that are not protected by armor. So like here we've gone under the arm. So this is typically not protected by armor, so it's an easy place to cut. So in that sense, Tendo Ryu is very practical.
石突きで胸をつく生死岩崩し。
So there we see the ishizuki end, the butt end of the naginata being used to thrust into the opponent's body.
股を狙っていく大車の乱れ。
And the next one, Oguruma no Midare is its name. We're going to be looking to cut up into the groin area. Finishing with a thrust into the body.
胴を切っていく大技の風車小石返しの乱れ。
So the next technique is Kazaguruma Koishigaishi no Midare. And it's a very big fluid technique. We aim to cut through the opponent's torso. And again, finishing with the aguritsuki, the thrust over the top.
次は杖の技をお見せします。杖の長さは、この自分の眉毛のところまでの長さのものを使います。
So now we're going to move on to the jaw. And the jaw is basically it's just a staff. The length of the staff, it depends on the person using it, but it should be approximately the same height as your eyebrows. Okay, so again, we'll use the jaw against the sword. So this is also in the repertoire of Tendo Ryu techniques.
武器が短いので今までのなぎなたよりか技が速いです。
So because the jaw is shorter than the naginata, the techniques themselves are usually a lot faster.
一本杉、こちらし、芝引き、戸口、五方返し、次は鎖鎌の技をお見せします。鎖鎌の紐は、両手を広げた長さになります。
So next, we will show you some of the kusarigama techniques. Now, kusarigama, literally translated, is a kusari is a chain, and a kama is ちょっといいですか? This, well, usually seen as an agricultural implement, and joined together with a ball on the end. The length of the chain is usually, depends on the person of course, but it's supposed to be if you hold your arms out to either side, that's the length of the chain that we use. Obviously it's not a chain here that we're using, it's just a normal cord, but a traditional weapon itself would be made of metal and wood.
獅子のほら入り、石火の入り、鎖鎌とともに回転担当を使います。
Sometimes the techniques in Tendo Ryu use a combination of weapons. So the waza we're going to show you now is the kusarigama and the tanto and kaiken, two short swords or daggers. Please also note, usually after each set of kata we do very strict rituals to show respect to our partner. But since we don't have time today, we've just abbreviated that section and just going straight into the techniques.
流れ星、重ねチラシ、次にお見せするのは2頭です。
The next set of kata that we'd like to show you is nito.
2頭は、2つの刀、長さが1センチから3センチ違います。
So with nito, we use two swords at the same time, but the swords are actually slightly different in length. One is slightly longer, usually about 1 to about 3 centimeters longer.
2本の小太刀を使います。どうしたの
So the nito techniques will be performed against a sword, a single sword wielding opponent. 陰の位、ししとび、波返し、両手止め、無敵の剣、次は回剣担当小太刀を使った技をご覧に入れます。その時の小太刀は今の2頭の短い方だけです。 So now we're going to show the kaiken and tanto techniques, in which the person who has the naginata will also use these shorter weapons to finish the encounter.
なぎなたを投げて回剣を使います。
So in order to do this, we have to get rid of the naginata first. So halfway through the technique, you'll see that the naginata is discarded and the shorter weapons are drawn from the obi.
岩崩し回剣止め、 次は担当を使う技です。
Next, we'll use a tanto, which is a slightly longer dagger.
岩崩し担当止め。次は小太刀を使います。
And next, we'll use the kodachi, which is, again, a slightly longer short sword.
両断の刃と言います。
This technique was ryodan no yaiba. So while Kimura sensei is getting ready for her embu with Ono sensei, just let me ad-lib a little bit here. The two demonstrators on the floor at the moment, Yuri Kimura and Mitsuru Kimura, you can tell by their surnames they're related. Yuri is actually Kimura sensei's daughter, and Mitsuru is Kimura sensei's grandson.
生死脇止め。真の位。無変不思議。小髄剣八重違い。一文字の乱れ。
はい。
Just as a footnote, Kimura sensei had the sword, and Ono sensei was using the naginata in the last 5 techniques, finishing with ichimonji no midare, the very, very important technique in Tendo Ryu, the start and finish of it all. Without giving too much information away, both Kimura sensei and Ono sensei are in their late 70s in terms of age. So as you can see, they are very, very energetic and sprightly and have been studying Tendo Ryu throughout their entire lives.
はい、ありがとうございます。木村先生、そして天道流なぎなた術の皆様、ありがとうございました。皆さんそのままでお願いいたします。それでは質疑応答に移ります。ただいまの講演また演舞についてニュージーランド側の会場でご質問がある方は挙手をして発言をお願いいたします。なお質問は講演また演舞の内容に関することに限らせていただきます。
So now we have more time for question and answers with regards to the demonstration and lecture that you've just heard about Tendo Ryu and its tradition. So if anybody has any questions I'd like to ask Kimura Sensei, please feel free.
How is a classical school like Tendo Ryu relevant in this day and age? And as the Soke, how do you want to take it forward into the future?
じゃあ私ですね。okay. 今の質問ですけれども、古武道ですね、今まで見てきた現代武道と違って、競技ではない、ということで、今の、この時代でですね、この古武道というものを、それをやって何を得るのかということと、また総計としてですね、これからですね、天道流の未来について、少し語っていただければと思います。
ご覧いただいてありがとうございました。私たち天皇流は450年の歴史があります。長い16代までのご宗家たちが守ってこられた技です。それを私たちもつなげていかないといけない。次の時代へとつなげていけるように努力しております。
Okay, thank you very much for the question. As I mentioned in my lecture, Tendo Ryu has a history of over 450 years, and before me, there are 16 soke, or headmasters of the school. I'm the 17th, and so in my position as soke, I have really, I'm the recipient, if you like, of this accumulated knowledge over many centuries. And so it's very important, at least in my position, to make sure that all of the accumulated knowledge and wisdom that has been passed down through the school over this time is able to be passed on into the future as well in an unbroken chain.
まだまだ未熟な我々がお見せした技では感じていただけないかもしれないんですが、本当に技の中に心のつなぎ合い、技のやり取り、そういうものの面白さというものが、やっても飽きないほどというのを日々感じております。
Maybe it was a little bit difficult to see just on a screen in a demonstration, but the interaction that we have with each other as we perform these techniques, it's not just a physical clash of weapons, there's very much a lot of strategy and mind and a special kind of interaction between individuals. By practicing these techniques together, as we have done over a lifetime, you learn so many things about yourself and about other people as well. It's this kind of interaction that's really, really important. So even though Tendo Ryu is a kobudo, which may be seen as not so relevant in the modern day and age, as an individual practitioner of this tradition, there are many things that you can gain from practicing.
今までいろいろ拝見した現代武道も日本の伝統文化である武道です。私たちの古武道もその日本の伝統文化である古武道です。それをやはり日本人である私たちが胸を張って海外にも日本にもPR し、 いつまでもそれが絶えることなく守っていくというのが、今お稽古している我々の務めではないかと思っています。
So you've seen so far today demonstrations of modern Budo. Even though we call it modern Budo, they are also, of course, part of Japanese traditional culture. And our Kobudo is, of course, that comes before the modern Budo. So this is a very important part of traditional Japanese culture, and it is our mission, it is our responsibility as caretakers of this culture to ensure that it is passed on, conveyed to future generations. It is an important part of the Japanese cultural legacy, and it's something that we all take great pride in and care about deeply.
素晴らしい質問ありがとうございました。
So thank you very much for that very good question. I hope that that answered it sufficiently.
もう一方いかがでしょうかということで。
Is there anybody else who would like to ask a question about Tendoryu?
Does Tendoryu have ranks or grades?
天道流には段位とか、そういうランクみたいなものがありますでしょうか。
今はございません。昔は入門とか指導許しというのがあったんですが、今はありません。
So actually, different to modern martial arts, Tendoryu does not have any ranks or grades. They used to have kind of titles like Nyumon, which is for somebody who's entered the school, or Shido Yurushi, somebody who's allowed to teach. But apart from that, there are no grades or ranks.
よろしいですか。はい、ありがとうございます。それではこれをもちまして質疑応答は終わらせていただきたいと思います。ということでございまして。時間の都合上ここで質問終了ということですね。で皆様、講演演舞いただきました天道流なぎなた術の皆様に今一度大きな拍手をお願いいたします。ありがとうございました。